I'm using my timer again. Hi guys. Okay, so hi, this is Lee with Fresh Astrology, and we are looking at October 2017. So the big news this month is Jupiter going into Scorpio. There's a lot of other movement, of course. There's sort of a concentrated area of activity for each sign. There's a little more concentration in one area, but what's also happening is a series of squares and kind of a grand cross thing happening at one point, and that will play into the dynamic in October. I imagine there are going to be some situations where people aren't in agreement, or where each one of us may find we're of two minds as well, or we feel two different ways. And that's where it may be useful to understand the nature of the change with Jupiter. So we'll review kind of what Jupiter is trying to do in these two signs. What is it all about when it goes into Libra, and when it moves into Scorpio? What is Jupiter wanting? What are the skies, the heavens, what's the universe wanting with all of that? So we'll talk more about that, because that may help us gauge how we want to respond or be proactive in certain areas of life and with whatever's going on for us. So that's the big news, and I'll talk a little about that here. First, I want to let you know that my website, which I always forget to mention, so I'm trying to make an effort to let you know, because I answer so many emails about the same question, that I should just let you know now. If you want a reading with me, you can reach me at freshastrology@gmx.com. That's my email. But if you just want to purchase a reading, you can go to www.freshastrology.com and go to the store there. You can purchase a 30-minute reading or an hour-long meeting. You want to email me your birth details and let me know what you'd like to focus on. I tailor each reading to the person and what they want. So let me know what you want. And also, if you want some life coaching and you want to work one-on-one with me, you can purchase the life coaching sessions as well on the same website in the same store area. And I have a new business, which is a travel and event business with a coaching twist, life coaching twist, and you can find out more about that business at tribetripsandretreats.com. And we have an event coming up November 11th in Cary, North Carolina, and we would love to have you there. I would love to meet you in person. So that being said, let's talk about the nature of Jupiter in Libra, and then move on to the nature of Jupiter in Scorpio. So in Libra, Jupiter and Libra are kind of melding their energies. And so Jupiter wants to bring beneficent things in. It wants the right thing to happen at the right time so that things move in the right direction, whatever that is. And sometimes we can't comprehend. It's a bigger, more heavenly, universal direction that we can't always comprehend what that is. So sometimes Jupiterian or Jovian luck does not feel lucky at the time. A lot of people would say stuff happening now in the world doesn't feel really lucky. And the Libra qualities merging with Jupiter, those Libra qualities of fairness, justice for all, love and compassion, the strength of law. A lot of people would argue all of that's eroding. And but what's happened is Jupiter's expanded these issues so we can really see what's there, really take a look and kind of shine a spotlight on it. And it's called our attention to something, to certain areas within our society, even inside us, that we haven't examined for a while, if ever. And so we've been forced to deal with the very subject of fairness and justice, laws that support equality and true justice, blind justice. Because the scales, the symbol for justice is blind. She has, Lady Justice has on a blindfold so that she's impartial. And that's true justice is impartial and just sets out laws that are supposed to, when working well, create a sense of equality, fairness, and justice, and compassion in the case of the United States. And that's the way it was meant to be. Whether it's working, I don't know, but that's what's come up. That's what's been expanded. We've had to look with, is this working? And consider, what is equality? What is justice? Consider that question in a big way, which is Jupiter is big and expansive. And this has come up in our own lives. If we're introspective at all, we've looked inward to consider what we feel is just. What do we think is equality? We've been forced to confront ourselves as well and how we handle this. And we've been forced to open it up for examination. So certainly one could argue that bringing awareness to anything is good. Bringing awareness to a place that hasn't had awareness on it. Bringing a shining light onto something that has been in darkness. It can only be good, because if it just festers in the darkness and we aren't aware of it, we can't do much about it. We can't know what to do. So that's what's been going on in a big, big Jupiter expansive way. And the idea of love and compassion, that's been huge. What does it mean to love one another and have compassion? So now as Jupiter moves into Scorpio, it goes from these tenets of, that's my timer, the tenets, the scaffolding, sort of the exterior shell that we create with a justice system and a government and a societal viewpoint, a societal way of looking at things. We have this shell that we build into place that hopefully will work as a structure for society. And then we have sort of the structure of our own ideas around justice. And then now we're going into Scorpio. We're going to be forced to expand a deeper area of us internally and also in society, because Scorpio goes deep. If there's a word I could think of with Scorpio, it's deep. And by that I mean, you can use the image of a mountain lake. And so a mountain lake is created by two mountains, right? So there's this place in between the mountain range where the water goes, right? And then way down at the V, the deep part of the V, that's this very still, deep part of the lake. So let's say the water is actually up here, and way down here is actually the bottom. The deepmost part of that mountain lake is very still, I imagine. I've never been to the very bottommost part of a lake, so I don't know. But I imagine the current down there is not the same as the current along the surface with the wind. It's not the same as where maybe a river comes in or exits. But way down at the bottom, I imagine it's still. For the sake of our talk today, we are going to imagine that this part down here, this very steep, deep part of the lake, the still mountain lake, is very, very still. And has a deep reservoir of strength, the strength of water energy. Water is it's just like this renewing, refreshing, it brings life. We are made up, so much of us is made up of water. So it's a very life-giving force. And without it, we wouldn't be alive. So it's a deep reservoir that Jupiter is going to be diving into and expanding the qualities of what that's like. So, but there's like a shallow side of Scorpio, just like with Lady Justice. The shallow side of Venus and Lady Justice is like a retaliation. Often people go to court to sue one another and to, attack, counterattack, right? That's the surfacey part of it. That can happen there on some level, but the whole structure of it is meant to make that right, make it work out okay. So the shallowy, surfacey part of Scorpio is retaliatory and vengeful, can be. it's intense, has this intensity, and it can be a deeper kind of revenge. But that's on the shallow, surfacey level. That's not taking into account this quality of stillness and this life-giving quality. So certainly, I don't know if you can tell, but I certainly would recommend, and I'm going to try to remember this as we move through this year, that going into that place of stillness and reserve and finding the strength of that deep water, that deep still water, understanding that water renewing resources available to us internally, as we move through times in our life, daily circumstances, societal change, that we draw upon this deep well of what is not only stillness, but a deep well of compassion, our own spiritual nature, our connection to that which is larger, that also exists in Scorpio. So in a way, we have a lot of strength available to us personally and in our society. And with each sign, it's going to hit a certain part of your chart and have more resonance there. But it will be reflected all around us in the news as well. There may be more news, just the way we saw a lot of news about the court system and the judiciary, trials and judges, and the laws that were being questioned and made and torn apart. You know, there was a lot of that in the news. And now we're going to see, you know, maybe a ripple effect of that, but we'll see maybe more news about actual water and our water resources and what's going on with water, oceans, rivers, lakes, groundwater, well water, our own public water system. There'll be more about that, and we'll be forced by Jupiter. It will open that area up and we'll be forced to look at it. And then we can consider how to behave. But there's this book by Sun Tzu, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, called The Art of War. It's an old Chinese text, and that would be a very interesting, just to have little quotes from that book on a daily basis, like flash up on your screen, would be a good reminder of the way, the recommended behavior, especially in confrontational situations or threatening circumstances, or just things in life that scare us. The art of being still and waiting is often, you know, plays throughout that book. I mean, it's not like I've read the whole thing, but I've read pages from it, and certainly seen lots of quotes. And the gist of it seems to be, to me, that there is an art of just being still and waiting to see what the circumstance, how it plays out itself, what the enemy may just. There's another old saying that has nothing to do with the art of war. It's a different culture, but it's called "hoisted by your own petard," or petard. I don't know. I would have to type in and look that up. But anyway, it basically means people can just kind of string themselves up or undo themselves if you just let them go long enough. And so with Scorpio, that's probably the recommended way to go, is to not be highly reactive, and to draw on a deeper well. That has something to do with spirituality and your core stillness, that peacefulness that we have deep within us, even if we don't always know we have that. So anyway, that is Jupiter's movement into Scorpio. So now we'll start with Aries and move around until we end with Pisces. All right. Hi Aries, welcome. We are, wait, let me hit the timer. I know that's maybe annoying to some of you, but I just have to do this. So welcome to October. I'm glad you're here. This is Lee from Fresh Astrology. And for those of you who didn't see September, I'm timing myself because I'm just training myself to do podcasts and get a sense of timing. And also trying to train myself here to have a better sense of timing. So just doing it on the fly and in a transparent way, so you know what I'm doing. That's how I live my life, or trying to be more transparent, so you get a sense of what I'm really up to over here. So I'm not looking at notes or reading texts from other people. I'm, timing myself. So anyway, we are looking at mostly Jupiter. There is kind of a sense of a grand, like a grand cross and a bunch of squares going on during this month. But often this is a time when we get a lot accomplished. There are also multiple trines and sextiles, which are good, easier transits or easier alignments. And so, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but it does feel like a time of big things happening proactively, which is more ideal than just waiting around. So it's, because I'm going to say, I said something a little counter to that in the introduction, the first 14 minutes, when I said the stuff about Sun Tzu and waiting, the art of waiting and being in stillness. There's some of that, but that may just be in one area of life, actually, for you. For you, it's around money, financial stuff, the shadow side of life. It's like being a little more circumstanced, acting from a place of compassion with the more shadowy things going on in your world, Aries. So, if someone's sick or in a darker place in your life, or if you're feeling that way, allowing kind of a letting go, just accepting, a deep acceptance of where you are, and trying to release your resistance to something you can't control. Because Jupiter is moving into this area, the 8th house, where there are a lot of things that are out of our control in that 8th house area. We can control how much like if we want to buy and sell property, that's an 8th house thing. We can control whether or not we update our will. That's an 8th house activity. We can control, how much we go into therapy. That's an 8th house. Do we choose a therapist and go through that process? That's 8th house. We can control how much we want to work on intimacy with a partner. That's 8th house. That could be even couples therapy. So we can control how much we do or do not do that stuff. Certainly some of those issues have the feeling of squares where they're things maybe we don't always want to attend to. Like we want our will to be in order, we just don't want to go do it. We don't want to actually have to think about it much or work on it, but we wish it would be so. It's stuff like that. We wish that we would be okay in our marriage, and we're mostly okay. The idea of actually going into therapy doesn't sound so fun. It's not like the thing you're racing to do usually. Usually by the time couples do get to therapy, they've gone pretty far down a path of needing it. And so it's like the gym. Like we wish we were just there and that we didn't have to get ourselves there, like dress and drive or even walk to the gym. We want to, there's the stuff we wish we could wave a wand and have it be done. And the actual doing the process of it is the stuff we don't want to do. That's the 8th house. That's the 8th house. It's the stuff we shy away from. We just wish it would be okay. So it's where we tend not to want to go and look in those dark cubby holes and sweep out the cobwebs, because who wants to go into a cobwebby space anyway to begin with? So that's the 8th house, and that's where Jupiter is going to be for you. So it is going to be a year where you would do best to, especially in your financial realm, in the realm of therapy, the realm of working on intimacy within a relationship, really coming together a little more, and that can be with business partners too. It's a time to become a little more intimate, to shine more light on what's going on with your finances. Be aware of what's going on in your money area, and I think by doing so, with the luck of Jupiter, it improves your certainly your awareness of your financial situation, but may actually improve your financial situation because you'll make different choices if you really look at everything and understand what's there. You'll make different choices if you really go into therapy with or without another person, because you'll look at things differently and make different choices usually, through the process of therapy. It doesn't mean that all Aries are destined for therapy or destined for any of this. It's just, these are examples. It's usually the area of life where we kind of tend to not be able to see it, but we have to work at it to be able to see it more, maybe. And we don't always want to see what's there in the 8th house. So matters of the 8th house may become far more fascinating. You may have more of a fascination for them. Like, you might want to learn more about psychology or learn more about high finance. You may want to learn more about The Art of War by Sun Tzu, which I mentioned in the beginning. So you may want to learn more about strategy, how to be strategic. You may want to learn more about spirituality, the darker side, or a side of spirituality you've just not gone near. You haven't wanted to approach it because maybe you didn't know how. So it may be like that. But on a very general, lighter level, when Jupiter goes into the 8th house, it's also a time when more money, that's the timer, more money can come in. It could be a little or a lot. It just depends on the person. It kind of depends on also what you're putting forth into the world. Certainly Aries has some big changes coming up in the career zone, which we've discussed. This will be manifesting all throughout the next 12 to 18 months and beyond. But certainly it'll be clear how much your life is changing sooner rather than later. And then you're in for like a 7-year ride of adjustment, I guess, to all the changes going on in your world, within your work zone and your finances. Learning how to deal with all that, and kind of, it's like the wild bronco that you're always trying to get on and figure out how to ride. And right now, Uranus is still in your sign. You're still trying to get accustomed to all the changes that have happened to you personally. And you're in this final stage of coming into your full self through all these changes and really discovering who you are. Uranus is like the great awakener. You are really awakening to who you are, and then it will be moving into Taurus, and there'll be more of an awakening process through lots of change, lots of surprise, unexpected turns that awaken you to maybe the profession you really want to be doing. It can be that. Now, people can kind of run away from that side of it. Like, they can hang on for dear life and ride the bronco, but never really want to learn from it, but they hang on and live through it, So the awakening part depends on the person as to how much they awaken. And awaken, what does awakening mean? We could talk about that for hours. But it does open your eyes, where Neptune can create fog and confusion. With Uranus, your eyes can suddenly fly open and see like a world you did not expect to see. And then there's the adjustment phase to that. So anyway, dear Aries, it is going to be, these are interesting times. And there may be some financial luck coming your way in October. There's a big focus on partnership and who you're partnered with, and kind of a lingering focus on health and scheduling, whatever that means for you. So the 6th house area, where Mars has been and will still be at the end of the month, indicates energy going into maybe exercise, new diet, getting to the doctor, dealing with a hectic schedule, how to manage a schedule that requires a lot of energy. That's going on through October. And I would just emphasize always the self-care. Make sure that some of the focus goes back to the self, because Venus and Mars begin the month, and Mars is still there at the end of the month, toward the end of the month. It's moving on out, but you've got, these can represent people too. So this is also an area for some people of pets. There could be issues with pets going on. Sometimes friends, pets, and also people we care for in our own self-care. So these are all passing, transitory influences that are very much there in October. So I'd say self-care, paying attention to what's going on in partnerships, giving it some light and some love with Venus getting in there, having open conversations, discussions, and attending to the larger financial picture, making sure one is not purposefully shying away from the underbelly of stuff. You know, maybe it's not bad stuff, but it's just the stuff, like, I don't feel like looking at that, you know. I don't feel like opening that bill, you know. I don't feel, can I just put it over here in this drawer? I don't feel like doing a spreadsheet to look at my finance. I know I want to get my will in place, but I can do that next month, right? You know, it's just that kind of thing. We do this with therapy too. Like, I know I want to do it, but you know, there's this, but this, but this. I don't know if it's the right time. And we can put stuff off that maybe would benefit us now. So it just depends on where you are in life. But that's, I'd say the bulk of October is dealing with those energies. And with this looming sense of a lot changing in your career zone, but also publicly, how you put yourself forward publicly. I think there's a big choice here for an Aries as to how you want to present yourself publicly. And you can, I think all of you need to know you can become very strong leaders, but it's dependent upon how much you're willing to put yourself out there. But all of you have such strong capacity to be leaders right now. All right, take care. Hi Taurus, this is Lee from Fresh Astrology. We are looking at October 2017. So the big news this month is really the Jupiter transit that's moving from the area of sky that is identified as Libra. And it's really, it's the way we perceive it from Earth. You know, we look, you know, past the sun to see, you know, what the sun is against in terms of the stars behind it. And we're a planet, Jupiter. So Jupiter's been in this area where we look at it from Earth. We are also looking at the constellation of Libra, mostly. And now it's, from our point of view, it's in this area of sky where the backdrop of stars is Scorpio. And so in the intro, I talked a lot about the nature of Libra, the nature of Scorpio, and kind of the influence that the combined Jupiter Scorpio vibe will be with the dual influences. And in your chart, this kind of depth and expansion, so an area that goes really big is going to be in your area of partnerships. So this is perfect if you're, like, say you're starting a business and you want to expand your client base or expand your partnerships somehow within, you know, developing business partners or something akin to that. That's what you could be looking at in your career. So it could be that, and some kind of expansion with friends. You know, maybe your friendship base expands. They could be more like acquaintance friends. They may be, but somehow they're important to you. You rely on them somehow. They rely on you. There's kind of this agreement feeling, like we are in this together kind of thing. Something like that. I just want to say too, if it looks like I just got out of the pool, I did. And that's just because I'm trying to fit this in over the holiday weekend, because it got kind of late getting the September ones out, and I don't want that to happen to October. And I'm starting up another business where we're just doing a lot on that end, and my coaching business is busy, so I am trying to just scoot this in, so I just didn't, the idea of blowing my hair and getting, coiffed for this is just, this not going to happen. So thank you for understanding that. So, when I'm quiet, I'm just looking for patterns here. So there's this kind of intensity in October, and it may feel intense at times, like your schedule's busy. It could be that there's an interest in getting caught up on doctor's appointments, dental appointments. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong at all. Sometimes when an area of our chart gets busy, it's just that it suddenly feels natural to do that. Like, it occurs to people who've never heard of astrology to make their annual visit to the doctor. It occurs to people who've never heard of astrology to go to the dentist and to maybe schedule a minor procedure, like, I don't know what, something minor. And it's just like this natural process that people go through. Stuff goes through this area of the chart that is the 6th house. And people just feel like taking care of health stuff. You might be doing a new diet. You might be doing a new exercise routine. You might be having conversations about health with others. And the intensity of this comes from the fact that it's linking in opposition to Uranus in your 12th house. Given the tough summer that a lot of people have had, when we have, by tough I mean when we have a heavy-duty eclipse season, when the moon's really active and linking to stuff actively, it tends to impact people's need for rest, or mental health issues kind of bubble up. And so when I see an opposition here, like, I may not talk about this opposition for everybody, but when I see it intersecting the 6th and 12th house as it is, and because of Uranus, which often in various relationships on a chart, it doesn't always indicate this, but it can indicate some kind of mental health issue, not necessarily with you, but with somebody you know. Could be a family member, could be just a friend. And I like to point, I'm just, one of my missions in life is to talk more openly about mental wellness, as I like to call it. Because so it's not just mental health, it's wellness. We are seeking wellness, and where are we on the spectrum of wellness in our sense of well-being? So what is, I would ask you to be thinking about, on a scale of 0 to 10, where are you feeling in your sense of wellness all across the spectrum? And your sense of well-being, ask yourself specifically, how, in terms of well-being, feeling good, where are you on a scale of 0 to 10? That can fluctuate throughout a day. It can, can have a day where it's, lower, a day where it's higher. But where is the floor? Is your floor, are you bottoming out at 0 a lot? Are you bottoming out way down, 0 is bad and 10's really good? Just, where the end of the scale is. So I'd say 10, like, to me a 10's like, yay, it's a 10. 10 means good to me. It's high sense of well-being. And 0 being, I just have 0 sense of well-being. Consider that. And if you have people around you, what's their sense of well-being? Where are they? Where are they bottoming out? Where's their floor? It may not be impacting you at all in this particular way, but when I see the 6th, 12th house opposition stuff, when I see Mercury of the mind opposing Uranus, another higher vibration of Mercury of the mind in a house of the mind, and this health, wellness, mind stuff's going on, I just want to point it out. And sometimes being forewarned is being forearmed. So if you or somebody is on a medication and it starts to get a little off balance, balance being that Libra, before Jupiter leaves Libra, there's this sense of balance. Are things in balance? You know, or is, if you're on medication, I won't go too long on this, but it's just, this summer was tough on people who had mental wellness issues. And it's just part of my own, what I think is important to have a public discussion about, and be open without a sense of shame or like something this needs to be secret, or, you know, let's not talk about this stuff. I think it's important to bring it out into the open and talk about it. This is like catching a cold, although it makes you really sad if, you know, you're depressed or something. It's like having some other kind of physical problem where we would talk more openly about it, talk more openly about getting help. But for some reason, if it has to do with the mind, people just don't want to always deal as openly, or they think it's private. And it is, you know, in our society, it kind of has to be a little private because of the way people deal with it. So anyway, I won't go on and on about it, but it is important. There is a pretty strong opposition here. You also have opposing this area, Jupiter, right on this descendant line. So when anything goes over the descendant or ascendant or midheaven or imum coeli angle of a chart, these are points on a chart that are a little more life impacting. They're stronger in their meaning when stuff moves across them. So when a planet that moves more slowly, like Jupiter, goes across the descendant, at the same time it's opposing something on your ascendant, which is, you know, it's not quite going over your ascendant, but when you've got this kind of thing going on, it's a big moment for a lot of Taurus people. So I want to just... So the reason to know about it in advance would be, can you proactively jump on board with working out issues with others that are getting bigger and bigger? Can you proactively jump on board with getting help for someone or getting help for yourself, finding a way to seek balance? Because what's going to happen is when Jupiter goes into Scorpio, I never hit the start on yours. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull it down to 4 minutes because I don't know how long I've been talking. But anyway, when Jupiter goes into Scorpio in this area of partnerships, but it's also talking still having a conversation about health because it's been there for a year. The conversation about health and partnerships. If you work in the health industry, this makes a ton of sense. It's not even as big of an issue. It's more practical. Like if you're starting to expand a medical practice and you want partners, you know, doctors to be partners with you, this makes a ton of sense. And it's more like you're building your business. If you're already in a long-term romantic partnership, if you haven't gotten married, this would be a time when maybe marriage would come up. It would be, one scenario could be that you were of the opinion that you didn't want to get married again or ever. I'm just painting one scenario. There could be a bazillion different versions of this, but there's a change of mind about partnership romantically if it's relating to your romantic life. So suddenly, you know, we use the language of Uranus, unexpectedly, suddenly, you change your mind or you get a surprise around a growing love interest. So one way this might go down is you've been dating and you haven't, you know, it's like, no, we're just dating. I don't know if I ever want to get married. Nah. You know, like just kind of keeping it light, keeping it on the surface, keeping it, you know, loosey-goosey. And then unexpectedly, Jupiter expands this area of partnership and goes suddenly very much deeper. And there's this more intense connection, So a couple under that scenario, you being one of them, might suddenly decide unexpectedly to commit long term, even though that hadn't been the plan. Likewise, if a partnership has been struggling and been out of balance, Jupiter hitting this descendant line as it's in opposition to Uranus, it may suddenly change your mind. If you're the Taurus, you know, if you're watching this for someone else, it's harder to know. But if you're the Taurus, unexpectedly, something just flips a switch and you change your mind about a partner. Maybe you decide we need to focus on a relationship, we need help. Maybe you decide I don't want this anymore. I hope that's not the case. Unless, you know, you're in a bad situation, then you need to figure it out so that you get in a better situation. Staying in an unhealthy situation, if it's not really moving along or is not helping anybody. So sometimes it is the right thing to do to break apart. But you know, it's always sort of sad to see something end. But for some people, it may start. Now, it may not happen on the day Jupiter hits the descendant, but that is a more, there's some timing here where there's a switch in your brain. So you may not immediately like drive over to your attorney and sign divorce papers. That's usually not the case. But some event triggers you into thinking, I'm just not sure about it flips a switch. Whereas before you're like, no, I'm committed to this, or it's a wait and see, or this will get better, or I can deal with this is what marriage is like. Something may flip a switch in you and you may just be suddenly thinking, you know, I may be on my way out of this. I don't know if this is right. So for some of you, it's a bigger moment. So I'm staying with you, Taurus people, a little bit longer. There's a bigger life-changing stuff going on here. And by this, you know, that means I'm looking at your chart. There are these, you know, there's like a perpendicular and horizontal line that cuts across this circle that's like a pizza. And so that stuff means there's just when planets or the sun or the moon or other things, indicators, cross these lines as they are with you on, you know, 4 points of your chart really, and 2 intensely, it's a more impactful time for you. So, but again, it doesn't mean bad impactful. It could be like getting engaged, building a business and expanding your partners in business somehow. Those can be, again, clients, deals, like if you're in sales, you know, closing deals. They could be important collaborations, professionally. So again, and then maybe important friendships are forged. So it's not bad, it's just there is an unexpected quality here, and it happens suddenly, and there's kind of a switch that goes off in your mind around this. And it may change something about there's definitely some changing of the mind here. Something in your mind changes. Plans you had around maybe school, teaching, travel, publishing, any legal decisions. Things could be shifting. There may be some decisions that are coming through that change things somehow. So the way to get through this well is to understand that if something's balancing well, then there's this deeper level you can go to. So if you and your work partner, everything's in harmony and everything feels like there's this nice sense of harmony, basically. Everybody's getting along, it's working, everything's in balance the way it should be. Then you move to the next level. You take it to a more, a deeper level. In business, I don't know what that means, but you commit a little more fully, or something like that. And in a relationship, it's the same thing. Things are in harmony. You get to this point in October, and it's like, let's do it. You know, let's commit. And then if things are out of balance, in business or in love, then there's something switches in your brain. There's a new way of thinking about things, is what I'm seeing. All right, so to get through it, go back and listen to the beginning about Sun Tzu. And I don't know if the art of war, you know, if everything's happy, happy, there's no, you don't need a strategy to get through it. If it's not happy, happy, then I would, even though a switch goes off in your brain and you may have a change of mind, I would do kind of a wait and see. I wouldn't immediately act, because Scorpio, the kind of action that comes under Scorpio is pretty intense, and I would wait and do more of the Sun Tzu, being a little more circumspect and watching the situation like an observer for a little bit before you act. But something is going to change in the way you think about something. So, you know, maybe get a little copy of The Art of War. It's not that you're going to war, but the whole book is really about, I think, a lot of stillness and just waiting and watching is what it seems like to me. All right, take care. Hi, Gemini. This is Lee from Fresh Astrology. And before I forget, if you want a reading with me, you can find me at www.freshastrology.com. If you want to take a look at my new travel and event business and our event coming up in November on the 11th, you can go to www.tribetripsandretreats.com. And we are looking at October 2017, and the big news is Jupiter moving from Libra into Scorpio. And there are some oppositions setting up in October. It's neither positive nor negative, objectively speaking. It's just there's going to be some quick changes and some probably action needed, some kind of action needed. And sometimes it's just an action of thought. It's a change of opinion. But there will be some unexpected things, some quick things that need to happen or do happen, and then there's the response. And so I can tell you the area where these are. To learn more about the nature of Jupiter in Scorpio, go back to the beginning and listen to the first 10, 14 minutes, something like that. And it's, if you truly want to understand the character and the way it could feel, and it also sometimes it gives you some clues about how you want to handle something, how you want to move forward, to get the deeper feel for it. So that's why I recommend going back and listening to the beginning. And I don't like to have to repeat 14 minutes of stuff every time I talk to a different sign. So that would be a lot. And you can choose whether or not you go to listen to that. But if you really want to understand a little deeper level, I would go listen to that. So for you, the opposition with Jupiter and the Sun and Mercury to Uranus is happening. And then there's another opposition setting up mid-month with Pluto and the Moon. And so there's this moment pretty much around the time Jupiter goes into Scorpio that's intense. And Scorpio's intense. But intense what? Intense love. You know, is it intense love? Is it intense joy? You know, is it intense sadness? We don't know. But I can tell you that if you do have children, it has to do with your children. If you don't have children, it may have to do with a romance. It may have to do with health, something to do with somebody's health. And it could be a little of both. Like the same person who has a health issue may not have the romantic issue. You know, if there's something also about your child, it may not be your child's health, it may be somebody else, it could be your health. And when I say health, I don't mean, again, it's all very objective. Health means a focus upon. So you could be embarking on a health career more seriously. You maybe get a job that your schedule, even if it has nothing to do with health, a lot of Geminis will find their schedule expands and gets really busy. And at the same time, their friendship base could expand. They could meet many more people and develop some friendships. So this area of the sixth house, which includes your health, which includes your schedule, which includes pets, farm animals, servants, should you have them, or should you be one. I hope servants, it's kind of an antiquated idea, but people who work for you, sometimes work friendships, kind of those everyday friends. This area is expanding. So why is it expanding? It depends on the person. Maybe there's some issues here, issues with friends. There could be issues with pets. There could be issues with people who work for you. Or it's more like you're expanding, somehow you become a manager. Here's another scenario, and suddenly you have a team underneath you. And suddenly you're managing a lot of people, your team expands. And that's new and creates more work, more scheduling, kind of a sense of scheduling for the group. That could be happening professionally. And certainly if you work in the health arena, which a lot of you are thinking about or doing because of Neptune up in the 10th house, it's pulling more Geminis toward the health profession than ever before. Well, maybe not ever, but recently in our memory, in our lifetimes. And so Geminis who, in another era when Neptune's somewhere else may not be thinking about that profession as much. They may be thinking about something else. But it's not just the medical profession. It's also, oddly, Neptune rules both, medicine. It rules like the clergy and religious leadership and figures. So maybe some Geminis are pulled in that direction. It also has to do with just a good business sense and a good ability to deal with numbers. So a lot of Geminis right now are finding that they professionally have this ability to deal with numbers well and can get positions or maybe drawn to positions like in accounting or in the finance world. There is something about money going on here. So there's something about money that's causing tension mid-month. It may have to do with a child. It may have to do with health costs or health care. When I'm quiet, I'm just looking at the pattern. So some of you may find you're actually making more money. The ability to make more money is there. But there is this theme of money going on mid-month, and the intensity is somehow intersecting this area of health, people who work for you, maybe romantic partners. So I think for Geminis who are getting married or getting more serious, that it could, because it intersects with romance, if you're getting more serious with somebody, then you want to understand a little bit more about each other's, it's only fair to understand more about each other's financial situations. And it could just be a moment where it feels more intense because you're having a more serious conversation, or it could feel a little stressed to discuss financial issues. But certainly, I think if you do have children or you want to have children, there's some issues there around maybe school, what to do about a school situation, something to do with school. Maybe, there you are in October. I don't know about everywhere in the world, but here it would be you've only just started school, but you realize, or your child's only just started school, but you realize maybe something needs to change. Or maybe it's more about them applying to college and they get in, or there's some surprises about where they want to go, or if they want to go. There could be some stuff, and if it's you could be changing your mind. There could be some change of direction with respect to any creative projects, or romantic situations. There could be a change of mind here about romance, kind of a surprise. So if I were going to give advice here on how to, rather than just waiting to see what happens, which you could totally do, that's usually what I do. I guess I would say if you have health issues in your family, your children, and you, it's better to be maybe a little proactive here. So you don't feel totally blindsided by the fact that your kid needs braces, for example, or blindsided by the fact that they need to have their tonsils out. Or, it does, so it may not be dire, but it may be better just to be a little more proactive, be driving your own boat, steering your own car, so that you're not just waiting. But then if I think about the stuff I said about Scorpio, where sometimes it's good to sit and wait, I don't know if that's true about health issues. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It depends on the situation. You really have to go situation by situation. But there does appear to be some family stuff going on. All right. But certainly I would say Jupiter here, even though it's expanding some of this stuff, it's also bringing luck. So any realizations you have, any change of direction, it's lucky. Jupiter's here to take you in a luckier direction than you were headed before. So even though there may be surprises, unexpected attention to a health issue, unexpected attention to a school issue, Jupiter's here to take you out of a bad rut situation and put you on a different track, get you going in a different direction. And that maybe just needed to happen. That may be one way to look at it. All right, take care. Hi, Cancer. This is Lee from Fresh Astrology. If it looks like I have wet hair and just jumped in the pool, I did. But I'm trying to fit this in over a holiday weekend so I can get these out. I was a little late doing September, and I wanted to do October a little more in advance like I usually do. So to take time to blow dry my hair and make it perfect, I just can't. So, but I just want to explain the wet hair thing. So welcome. We're talking about October 2017, and I want to include in this, just so you can find me, if you want a personal reading or if you want a life coaching session, you can find me at www.freshastrology.com. And if you want to check out my new business, which is a travel and event business with kind of a life coaching twist, a self-help twist, you can find us at www.tribetripsandretreats.com. And we have an event coming up in November and would love to have you if you want to come. So Jupiter's the big news here, and I did do, as usual, I have like the first 10 to 14 minutes is a deeper discussion around the nature of what's going on. So I talk more in depth about the nature of Jupiter in Libra and the change in climate that's going to happen, the astrological climate, when Jupiter goes into Scorpio. And it's a pretty big shift. It's a significant shift in climate. It bigger than when it moved from Virgo to Libra. This is a more distinctive shift, I would say. So you'll feel it, and the shift when it in a year or so when it goes into Sagittarius, that'll be another very distinctive shift. So this one feels a little more distinctive than it did last year. Although we certainly have felt Jupiter in Libra this past year. It's all to do with, are things in balance or out of balance? And because of the Jupiter nature of blowing things up big, if things are out of balance, they'll start to look really out of balance. And if things are in balance, we don't notice as much. It just is like harmony, everything's great, everything's candy and rainbows, and people just feel good. But when things are out of balance, things start to really tip. And I think a lot of people have been feeling that. But then some people in their personal lives, they're in a relationship, it just feels really harmonious. It's all love and, like I said, rainbows and lollipops. And then that feels really good. So a lot of people were, steered toward committing in a relationship. And here, when it goes out of this balance scenario and moves into Scorpio, it's about taking things to a new level. Now that level can vary depending on the situation. So if things have been really out of balance, there's going to be a balance-seeking measure. There's going to be a desire to bring it back, but it goes into a Scorpio way of doing that. So it all depends on the situation. Each situation in this case can be so unique. I did in the intro refer to the book by Sun Tzu, The Art of War, not because I think a war is going to happen or I think people are in a war with each other, but it's more like, how do you confront a situation in life, a day, like an event within a day, so something relatively small. You get a situation that is puzzling to you, you don't know how to get through it, you're not sure what the other person's thinking, you've never encountered the situation before. The Sun Tzu, I'm just guessing, but based on the little I've read of that book, there's a lot in there about just watching and observing. It's kind of the same thing, but observing is a little deeper. It's, watching is just like the act of looking. Observing is really taking it in and learning something from the watching, and then maybe just doing nothing for a while, but having an awareness. So not checking out, not turning a blind eye. This is like a deep connection with the situation. So there's an intense connection with the situation or person, the decision, and the patience. The good side the high side of Scorpio is the patience and the depth and the awareness to be with it for a little while before making some kind of drastic decision. But there is now like more of a laser beam focus in certain areas of your life, and for you guys, this is impacting where you live, who you live with, possibly children if you have them, maybe having children. So this is a time for Cancer people out there, be you a man or a woman. If you do not want children, be very, very mindful of how you prevent having children. Pay a lot of attention to that, because a lot of Cancers this is a time when, if you're in a fertile age, and sexually active, there's a higher likelihood that you could have children. So just be mindful of that. It's when a lot of people would think of adopting suddenly, or taking in a foster, or expanding your family somehow. And but it's also a time when romance will flourish for many of you, and it's a time when issues around children will flourish as well. And issues can range anything from your children or child having a very interesting year when ultimately, it may not always seem like it, but ultimately good things are happening, for lucky things. Sometimes luck appears not the way it would in an advertisement for everything being perfect. Luck can appear as in disguise. So keep that in mind this year. So if stuff starts to seem like it's spinning out of control with a child, the idea with it being in Scorpio is that you get the laser-like focus and attention on it with total awareness, not trying to escape, but be with the intensity of the situation. Trust that the right strategy will come to you, and do some patience building activities, and just it's like you just want to be in stillness, maybe practicing meditation to help you sort out if there's an issue with your child. Or you may just observe children having a really fabulously lucky year. Also with the same with romance. If you have a more intense romance beginning in October, then it's the same thing. It's going to feel intense regardless. You can't change that. But it's the idea of also finding that place inside you that has stillness and watchfulness, so that I guess you don't make quick, stupid decisions, I suppose. You know, it's an intense romance, but, you know, be a little, have, I guess I want to say, one foot in the passionate, you know, intense part of it, and one foot out, being in a place of stillness and watchfulness and patience to see where it goes. Does that make sense? But if you do start a romance this year, and certainly in October, it's going to feel pretty intense. Or it could be a pre-existing one that gets more and more intense. It may just expand. Or some people may just want to suddenly date a lot of different people. You know, you may have more than one person that you're interested in. But something about the romance is tied to work. So some of you, if you are getting more serious about somebody in a relationship, or even if there are issues with a child, there may be these issues that come up around moving and where people live and where you want to work. So, and that's typical in a relationship, or when there are family issues. Sometimes it's like, where do we want to live? Where do I want to work? I need to have a job close to home. I don't want to travel as much, or maybe I need to travel more for work. Some of those questions may come up. And when I'm quiet, I'm just looking. Definitely a lot of partnership issues. Big time partnership year for Cancer, which I mentioned in September. So it's good to, at this time, for all of us really, but for you guys, to practice maybe the art of mindfulness and being still. So if meditation, just sitting and trying to clear your mind, doesn't work so well, getting out into nature or getting into water, because we're dealing, if you like the water, well, you're a Cancer, you probably do. Maybe swimming, spending time in water, near water, is meditative for a water sign. So that may help. But any kind of mindfulness practice is very beneficial right now for everybody. And especially with respect to the area where Jupiter's hitting Scorpio. So around children issues, around romance or creative projects or building a company, you want to have one foot in the passion and one foot in the stillness, you know, the observer stance, so that you keep a little balance. You're kind of coming out of this time of Jupiter where the balance is the issue. So in Scorpio, it's the intensity plus the ability to be still and watchful. I don't know, it's very, it's got this very Eastern feel to it. Write to me with any questions. I know some of this is a little circular in the way it sounds, but have a great month. I think there are just a lot of changes going on for people, and along with the planetary shift and change, and part of dealing with the changes, some of the successful way you'll deal with the change is to develop this both a sense of following passion combined with the ability to be your own observer and be a little still and watchful at the same time. So not getting stuck, but also the ability to develop distance on something too, so you can not react too quickly, I guess I want to say. All right, take care. Hi Leo, this is Lee from Fresh Astrology. We are looking at October 2017. And before I begin, I just want to let you know and remind you that if you want to find me and get a personal reading or a life coaching session, you can purchase those at www.freshastrology.com. If you want to check out my new business, which is travel and events with a life coaching twist, we have an event coming up in November, on November 11th, and we would love to have you there. I'd love to meet some of you, all of you in person. And you can ask me any questions by emailing me at freshastrology@gmx.com. So we are looking at October, Leo, and there's a lot going on, it appears. You know, and we kind of, like, August was a really active month, and then September was a little, I think we've had a chance in September, not that it's not active and stuff isn't happening, but there's kind of a chance to catch breath in September. And then October, there's a speeding up effect, I would say. So again, it doesn't mean every day in September is quiet. It just means the character of the month is, it's fluctuating. Like August was up here with peak intensity, and then September's a little less, and then October's a little more intense. And some of that has to do, maybe a lot of it has to do with Jupiter shifting into Scorpio and creating some opposition along with the Sun and Mercury to Uranus. So Uranus amplifies in a different way than Jupiter, but they both amplify. There's a speeding up quality. And, Uranus is like a higher vibration of Mercury. So the mind is like a bit mind-bending, a lot of decision-making, a lot of communication issues, particularly for you. The areas of the chart impacted are your kind of mostly your ninth, but it's kind of implicating your 10th house too. So the ninth house is about learning, travel, legal issues, publishing issues, messaging, your communicating your ideas, marketing, messaging. It's like, what is your message? So you can find a lot of activity at the ninth house for a person when they're heavy duty into marketing and sales, in law school, publishing a book or publishing articles, writing, speaking a lot, public speaking. People on YouTube, there's more activity here for people on YouTube. And there's the electronic nature of this too with Uranus. So that's what you've been up to. You've been using maybe a lot of social media, electronics, the internet. Maybe you've been traveling. This idea of travel for you has been quite large, and that may intensify or feel intensified. So this idea of commuting, there's just a sped up quality to travel, commuting, and also messaging. So you may just be busy with lots of emails. You may have lots of deadlines that have to do with school, with book deadline, publication deadlines, school deadlines, tests, just the flurry of activity that comes with school. If you have a child in school or looking at college, these activities are intensified in mid-October. There may be some sudden surprises or changes of mind around school issues with a child. Suddenly, with Uranus, you always, if you're going to create a sentence around a possibility with Uranus, you start with, unexpectedly, suddenly, there was a change. There was a kind of this lightning bolt feeling and an aha moment. Somebody announces something new. You announce something new. There's something new, and kind of a surprise. And so so these themes may involve children and school issues, may involve legal decisions, may involve the law somehow, may involve changes in travel plans, changes in marketing plans. But it's also the sudden, like the electronic publishing. Maybe you started a blog recently, you've begun a blog, and this is a big, intense new thing for you, and maybe it's heating up and you're really prolifically writing in October, and just getting those things out quickly. So that's kind of fun, actually, but it may feel intense. So the shift that is happening for you, and there could well be there's this implication of creative projects that are serious and you're really working on these. There's also this implied child issue potentially. So if you do have children, you may find, and because Saturn is in your 5th house of children, and Saturn can speak to school issues as well, learning issues. There very well could be school stuff going on with kids, and decisions, unexpected decisions you need to make, unexpected announcements from the teachers. Do you ever get those phone calls? Hello, we have to talk to you about your child. Could be something like that, but you'll deal with it. And the kind of change that's happening here with Uranus also kind of pinging off of Jupiter is that maybe there needs to be more of a family approach to something. Family issues are highlighted here. There could be a need for maybe to move or to enlarge a space at home, to work on the home physically, maybe, you know, reorganizing so that maybe you have an art studio or a place to write. You may be reorganizing space to accommodate whatever project you're working on. You may be needing more space for a home business or just setting up a home business. You're working more from home maybe. And a lot of luck surrounds this. So if you're establishing an office within your home or starting a business, there's a lot of luck here because this is Jupiter. And it's intense. Jupiter's going into Scorpio, which is like the long game. We're playing for the long game. Scorpio wants the long game. It wants the intensity. It wants the deep connection. And so it has a good feeling to me. I do think there's some intensity here, but it has a good feeling overall. And actually the Sun and Mercury are working nicely at this time when there's some intensity at mid-month. Mercury and the Sun are working nicely with Saturn. So I think, again, it's sort of well starred in terms of writing projects, legal projects, even travel plans, school plans for your child. There is this, you know, there's some good stuff here. I just think there may be some quick decisions to be made, unexpected turns and twists, and then you just have to deal with what's there. A lot of the beauty and the gifts that come with Jupiter and Scorpio is we can all expand our Scorpio nature wherever it is. So with family issues for you guys, and housing issues and home office issues, it's the ability to commit deeply to something, create this laser-like focus on whatever the family, child, housing issue is, new business issue, create this laser-like intense focus, but also learn a more Eastern art kind of way of keeping one foot in the intensity and the laser focus and keeping one foot a little back in a place of more stillness and poise and watchfulness. So not getting too swept away with any drama, not getting too swept away by maybe expanding workload, expanding stuff to do around the house or with kids, keeping a place for yourself to have a little space and stillness. Often meditation is good for this, or getting out into nature, or just creating a quiet place at home for yourself. Maybe, but you need the ability to balance the intensity with the new stuff going on and the maybe unexpected stuff, to balance that with some inner work. It's the way it looks to me. That's the only advice. Some of this is just gonna, you know, whenever Uranus is going on, we don't have a lot of control over that. We don't drive Uranus so much as it will surprise us, and then we cope with our eyes being opened. It's kind of the awakener, the surprise awakener, the aha moment when the light bulb goes off. You know, it's the planet of the inventor, the mad scientist, but the person who is at the forefront of whatever. And so we can get comfortable with that place, you know, that the nature of that planet, but we can't really control it, and we shouldn't seek to. But we can, if we know, for example, in Leo, it's driving this area of marketing, sales, publishing, the legal world. If any of that has to do with your business, you know that you're well starred to be working on that stuff. And probably have a lot of deadlines and intensity coming up around mid-October, but it looks like there's this lucky, even though Jupiter's in opposition, Jupiter is still lucky. It doesn't lose its lucky nature. So it may feel intense, but, you know, it's overall put you in a good direction, I would say. As long as you're not in a place of retaliating and quickly acting and responding in a retaliatory way. In that particular way, I would say it's not so well starred. And people might still do that, but it's not so well starred to retaliate quickly. Because then it's just like this mushroom cloud of venom, I guess. And so the idea is to practice that stance of the observer standing back a bit. In the beginning of this whole reading, this forecast, in the first 10 to 14 minutes, I discuss this book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and it's really, sorry, that was my timer. It's really about practicing the stance of observation and patience and waiting something out, but observing carefully, keeping awareness full and on something, but not acting quickly or reacting quickly necessarily. So anyway, you guys can write in once we get into October what this is like for you, what's going on. I do sense professional changes and new directions or surprise activities, and probably some intensity of writing, communicating, talking, speaking engagements, writing engagements, deadlines, that kind of thing. It's busy feeling, busy. All right, take care. Hi Virgo. Welcome. This is Lee from Fresh Astrology. We are looking at October 2017, and I do have wet hair. I've been at the pool, and for me to fit this forecast in, I just didn't have time to do my hair. Would have just made it impossible. One too many things. So just yes, my hair is wet, but I'm comfortable with you guys. I'm at home with you, so be at home with me. We're talking about October, and the big news, of course, is Jupiter moving from Libra into Scorpio, and it's a busier feeling, more amplified feeling kind of month, the energy, because of the way Mercury is working with Uranus, Sun's working with Mercury and Uranus, Jupiter's opposing Uranus, and we have Pluto opposing the Moon at some point, which is also, in a square to Mars and Venus. So we've got all this like square energy, but also lots of beautiful trines and sextiles, which are happier feeling, easier feeling alignments. So what this means to me is that a lot of things are going to need to be done. So generally speaking, I would say it feels busy. And there's some decisions to be made. A lot of thinking and communicating needs to happen around certain areas of your chart. So we'll review, where this is in your chart. Hang on a second. I haven't switched over from Leo. Let's just quickly do that. I was thinking that just looks just like Leo. It's because it was. All right. Okay. So the intensity for you is really around your work world, how you earn a living. If you don't work and don't need to work, it's more about how you budget and spend money, if it's around money at all. It's more about how you spend or don't spend, how you manage your money. A lot of you may be on kind of a buying spree. If you have the money for that, you may find there's a lot of activity around spending. But also it could be a lot of activity around budgeting and choosing not to spend. Maybe conversations around money. And if those don't seem to apply somehow, this is an area of your value system. So it's discussions around values. You've had all year kind of a focus on weighing up, under the scales of Libra, weighing up your value system. And understanding what feels fair and just to you. What does feel fair and just to you? What feels harmonious? Where is harmony lacking? Where are things out of balance? This has been a year to kind of move through those issues for you. And Now what's happening is you're moving, that focus is shifting during the month of October, and it will be moving more into this the feel of the whole next year, starting in October, is noticing and having more of an awareness on how people talk to one another, what your message is, how do you speak, how do you sound in an email, how does your voice come across in written form, are people understanding you? So it's kind of paying attention to this, noticing, learning how to maybe be a more effective communicator. With Jupiter, we have themes of publishing, so there's that communication, maybe with a book, you know, a published book, a published blog, public speaking. There's also the theme of the legal world, so legal language, writing legal documents, legal communications. Jupiter also has to do with higher education, or education in general. It's really more to do with higher education, but it's in this interesting area of the third house, which is more to do, if you're speaking of education, it's more like learning a skill here and there, expanding a skill set rather than going off to university. Sometimes they can kind of show up together and merge depending on what you're into, but this also could speak with Pluto in play in the 5th house and Uranus about to go into your, you may have a kid who's you're getting on track to go off to school, maybe not this year, maybe in a year. So it's like a year of preparation. This speaks to me of the 11th grader. You know, it's a year of focusing more on college, a path, and that it won't come up until the following year when they're really applying to school. So this to me is like the year, maybe 11th, 12th grader. This is kind of, I could see that for those of you who have children in that age group. If your children are much younger, there's just an expanded, maybe you're going into the schools to, maybe you'll find yourself in the school a lot, maybe you'll volunteer, be in the PTA, maybe there'll be a really lucky, sometimes you have those years when you just get the best teacher in the world and you're just so grateful. So your child could have just a beautiful year at school. Or even if the child is struggling, you find that the school, there's this lucky confluence of people and events that help you solve, or just help you, provide a safety net. Jupiter always has that buoyancy feeling. It holds things up, and it tries its best, the influence. It holds things up, tries to prevent disaster where it can. Sort of the feel of the energy, and it wants to safely pick up the situation or the person and move it to a better place. It wants to bring in, or sometimes it's delivering things like a really good teacher, or like money, or delivering opportunity. It does that, but it also sometimes will just try to change the situation, lift the person up, move the person over. So sometimes even with Jupiter, we'll have things like layoffs and jobs ending, and the intent is, hey, let's just get you over here. You need to be over here, not over here. So let's just gently pick you up. And so usually if something like that occurs, it feels more gentle and loving. It's not as messy, unless there was a huge mess before. If you were in a disastrous, hateful, vile situation, it may blow up and get worse before it gets better, but still there's the added benefit of it has to end at some point. And maybe it has to blow up and get worse before it can subside. So mostly it looks like there's a lot of luck in your career zone with maybe a new title, a new job, a new opportunity that may have to do with the law, publishing, and teaching, learning somehow. I'm trying to think what else we can say here. And there's this idea that your finances are changing. With this influence of Jupiter, I would say they're probably going to change for the better. Let me look here. Ultimately, I think And Jupiter is going to be moving into a nice alignment with Pluto once again, rather than squaring it, so, which it had done last year in this area of income for you. It was squaring Pluto. So you may have felt a little frustrated in your ability to earn, and maybe frustrated that you were spending a lot. Now what Pluto is going to be doing for a Virgo is moving into a better alignment with Pluto. Jupiter and Pluto together definitely create money stuff, and when they're in happy alignment, they can really improve and create a lot more income. So it's going into a happier place for you this year. So this is all getting set up. So it feels like your income is about to take a big bounce upward. It may, because of the shaky nature of Uranus, it may still feel a little bouncy to you, like it bounces up and down. That influence is going away, or beginning to go away next May. So that up and down quality or feeling that you have about your financial situation will be more peaceful after next May. It will begin to just, you know, instead of being like an ocean full of big high waves, it'll just kind of settle and feel calm, like you'll be in calmer waters financially, beginning next May. But there's this idea here that this process is beginning. So whatever's going on in October, somehow it's going to have this longer term impact on your finances. I would say in a good way, because of the alignment that Jupiter is going to be having with Pluto this year. I would say it's going to be good. Likewise, in addition, also with money, you want to look at Neptune, Pluto, and Jupiter. And what's going to happen over the course of this year is Jupiter is going to be making a pass where it's going to be in happy alignment, not only with Pluto, but with Neptune. And that is nice. That's nice. So I think for Virgos, you've been coming out of it, and you've hit a luckier time for you over the past few years, no matter how it came about or what it looks like. You've had a reprieve financially and some luck. Even if it was a layoff with kind of a golden parachute, you've had a reprieve of sorts. You know, no matter how, again, it could look very different for each Virgo. But now it looks like things are set to improve more proactively, especially in these areas I've already mentioned. Also, it looks like some maybe creative projects are good. Setting up your own business implicated. Maybe some luck with children, some help financially somehow with children. I don't know exactly what that means, but maybe they get loans for school. Maybe, I don't know. But, you know, stuff with children could be kind of... And there is, actually, this is more of a romantic looking year for you. There could be changes romantically for you. I would say more after the new year. There could be a big shift romantically for many Virgos. Sometimes the shift is internal before it becomes, I would say almost always the shift is internal before it becomes external. We're just not always aware of it. But I do think there is a person who may be a Capricorn, or who may be significant to you, whatever significantly older means to you. Some people, I know, women, are like, I only want to date men younger than me. And I always think, really? Like you're limiting, like they can't even be your same age? Like that's what's going on in my head. But I know a lot of women who are like, no, I'm a young whatever, for, you know, whatever their age is. I'm not really like my age, so I want somebody younger. Or they don't want to date someone who's too much older than they are, or they want to only date someone who's a lot older. You know, people have these funny preferences. They're just their personal preferences. And with Saturn, if it's not a Capricorn person with heavy, you know, they could be a rising Capricorn or a moon Capricorn, so maybe it's not their sun sign. It could be a person who's significant, in quotes, because it's whatever that means to you. For the woman, like I have several friends who only want to date much younger men. you know, significantly older could be someone their age. So that's why I do the quote works. So it may not be someone, you know, a lot older than you are, but somebody who seems older to you, maybe just somebody very mature. Or it could also swing the other way. It could be someone a lot younger than you. And a lot meaning whatever you think that is. You know, a lot younger than you, maybe 2, 3, 5 years younger. That may be a lot to you. So it's relative to you. But especially if you've been single for a long time, that Saturn going into the 5th does not, you can't kill something that's already dead, you know? So if it's already been like a barren field of dating, Saturn going in isn't going to like squash it further. It's more, if it doesn't come across as a person coming in right away, although you do have Juno and Pluto in here at the same time, you've got Saturn about to go in, and so it looks more like there's some power there and some change. But I guess my advice for Virgo would be to thinking, applying, how do I want to say this? Definitely it's time to have a mature relationship. And I'm not speaking down to you like, oh, you don't have mature relationships, but it's definitely, one wouldn't look at this and say you can just date and have fun and play and be lighthearted. That would be wrong to say that to you. So I would have to say it's time to take this seriously. Maybe if you're tired of being single, take this seriously. It's time to build something. And that includes you coming in maybe with a new, more, some kind of different attitude to build, being willing to build and be in for the long haul is sort of there. And that includes being willing to deal with intensity, being willing to deal with something to do with structure. But of course, I always want to temper that with saying, you know, this is not about settling or putting up with something that's bad for you, but this is about, there is something about maturity here. So you want a mature relationship. Maybe it's not that you need to, although I think to have a mature relationship, everyone needs to be invested in maturing with the relationship. So I think that is a part of it. I can't soften that too much, but you probably know this. A Virgo is very practical, and you would know that, you know, a good relationship probably has mature qualities to it, and that involves both people growing and learning. I guess that's a key word, learning how to be in a relationship again, learning how to be more mature in a relationship, learning how to deal with a mature relationship. So you can play around with those words, and then taking your time. With Saturn, you know, we've got the concept of time. Pluto definitely is a slow moving energy. So taking your time and being okay with being patient, taking your time, not rushing, not being frustrated if the other person doesn't want to rush, not letting another person rush you. Take your time. Both of you take your time. So if you're in a relationship, you're married or in a long-term relationship, this is more about maybe it could be like your hobbies, your projects, but it also, you may need to structure time to play. So it could be about, Virgos are always working a lot, and they always have something they're doing. So it can kind of put them off buzzing around, like a busy bee, not focusing on, working on romance. And so there's this idea that for the Virgo, since it's your chart, it's not up to the other person to do it, but for you to participate in working on building a romantic feeling relationship. Even if you've been together for a long time, it's you coming in, creating a schedule, creating time to devote to a relationship. Because I think with time in Virgos, there's also this idea, well, I don't have time. I don't have time for a relationship. I don't have time to work on this. I just don't have the time. That's kind of a Virgo-ish thing. And Saturn's coming in and saying, work on that time issue. Work on the time issue. So that's about it. That's enough. Enough big life issues to be thinking about. All right, take care, Virgo. Hi Libra, this is Lee from Fresh Astrology, and we are looking at October 2017. And I do have wet hair. I'm doing this over Labor Day weekend, and just for me to have time to sit here, feel like I had time to sit here and do this, I just didn't want to blow dry my hair, so I was at the pool. Anyway, so thank you for being here, and if you want a personal reading with me, you can find me at www.freshastrology.com, and you can purchase readings there and life coach sessions. The life coaching sessions take the astrology. The astrology tells you the themes, what's going to be there in your life, what's coming up, you know, kind of the time horizon for things coming up for you. The life coaching is more about how you can proactively do things, what's going on for you internally. It's more practical in nature in a lot of ways. I also have a new business that you can find at www.tribetripsandretreats.com. This is a travel and event business with a life coaching self-help twist that I've started with some friends, and we have an event coming up in November, and we would love you to come. It's going to be Saturday, November 11th. So go check it out at tribetripsandretreats.com. Okay, so what is going on for you? So there's a big event, really, for everybody, but it impacts you most likely in the area of your career and your day-to-day work. So I would say a lot of Libras are actually getting a new job or a new profession is coming down the pike here. So new job, new profession, new title, a raise, a promotion, you know, jumping to a different company, just somehow something new and lucky feeling to do with your career comes in. For some people, this could be more of a side hustle kind of thing, so it's not your day job, but some additional thing you do that comes in and begins in October. So it may feel more like that, you know, where it's not really your day job, that's not changing a whole lot, but your ability to bring in money or to start something else may shift. And that will, you feel that or be aware of that more in October if you're not aware of it already. And so Jupiter's been in your sign for a year. I know that not all Libras feel like this has been a great year. At the same time, the people I know personally, I know that the way things have culminated toward the end of this Jupiter transit have actually been lucky, but sometimes luck doesn't look like what we think luck is. I think in our culture that luck is having the winning lottery ticket or having Prince Charming ride up, you know, in a, you know, fancy car or fancy bike or fancy kayak. I don't know, whatever you're into, but you know, really, even if we don't watch commercials, and I don't watch commercial TV, there's still this culture that we're attached to that thinks luck is like a beer commercial or a car commercial or some kind of commercial where everybody's laughing and everything looks perfect and all the people look perfect, and there's this sense of perfection. And also kind of the external stuff in life, the material look of things, even the way people dress and do their hair. Clearly I'm not into perfection, but you know, we still get sucked into that idea that Jupiter's going to look like, has this glossy, that's going to be glossy and exciting and be obvious in a material way. And that's not actually what's happening for some people I know. For some people I know, life has taken a turn that doesn't, on its exterior surface level, look especially lucky. But at the same time, with a little bit of distance and wisdom, one can see that it is lucky. And sometimes life is just like that. Luck can come in a surprising package. So for the Libras out there who think, I'm not so sure about this luck thing, it may be that in a few years you see more, you can look back and see where changes that took place this year, that hopefully took place for you. Sometimes what's going on is someone's really stuck in a situation or a way of living that's very harmful to that person. And the reason they're stuck is part of them is resisting getting unstuck. And Jupiter, Uranus, which is also at play here in October, and has been working in people's charts anyway. Uranus, Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn, these slower moving planets, when they hit certain areas in a chart, they can really serve you by unsticking you even when you won't. So a lot of us go kicking and screaming, still holding on to the thing that's bad for us. No, I'm not leaving this situation. I'm not leaving this person. I'm not leaving this idea that I have, this obstinate idea. I'm going to cling to it even though it hurts and it's not good for me. And life has a way of, when we won't leave something, a way of being, a way of thinking, a way of living. So it's not always like a job or a person. Sometimes it's just the way we're living our lives, the way we're thinking our thoughts usually. Obstinately clinging to something that's actually really makes us suffer. And because these planets, I think, ultimately are benign, if not very helpful and loving, will grab you metaphorically in life and pull you out of, suddenly out of a situation, or lift you gently out of a situation, put you down somewhere else where you can begin to go in a different direction and create a different way of living. So sometimes when we're just obstinately stuck, and sometimes with good motivation, with good, we have good intentions, but so staying stuck, sometimes what's happening with Jupiter is getting us unstuck in the way that we need to get unstuck, and bringing in help in the way we need help. It may not be the way we want the help. We may think we don't need the help, but that's sometimes what's going on. But it is, I think, beneficial to the person. We just don't always see it. But I think a lot of Libras probably had, a lot of obviously lucky things happening for the most part. Good opportunities coming in, meeting new people. I think a lot of Libras did. But there may be this undercurrent of other stuff that maybe just didn't feel as lucky, but maybe 5-10 years from now you'll see that it was. Because I do believe it's there, that life sometimes falls apart so we can rebuild in a better way. So, all that being said, I was just talking about stuff that happened in the past over the last year. So this is not about what will happen. What will happen is Jupiter's going into Scorpio. And if it can also, Jupiter in the second house sometimes can be about relationship. And it could be, if you're not married, that this idea of marriage is very strong for you this year. And another thing that happens in the second house is marriage is tied to values. Also money obviously has values tied to our values. But there's this expansion and depth of exploring what your values are. What do you stand for? What's really important to you? What do you want to protect and preserve in your life? And why? It's a good time to examine one's own values and maybe throw out old ones that aren't serving you anymore. Sometimes we take on the value system of the people around us, not realizing we've done that, and then we're making a lot of decisions through our lifetime based on that value system that maybe isn't really our authentic one. And sometimes we can chip away at that, and it's time to maybe examine your values and make sure you're living from a place that's authentic to you. So there's that process, because with Scorpio, as I said in the first 10 to 14 minutes, whatever the intro was, I go into more depth around what it is to be in a Jupiter Scorpio time. And it is more intense, and there's a lot of depth here. And so Jupiter will open up that area of values and depth and what your core, what's important to you, and make you look at it somehow. I don't know. It just depends on your situation how that will happen. For many of you, it has to do with partnership and marriage and exes, and so it's, you know, current people you're currently in marriage with. Something about that could have you open up and look at your values. Maybe you're going in different directions, the two of you, or maybe you find your values are really in sync and it makes you feel like you can be committed to this person. If maybe it's somebody you've been dating, maybe you're ready to commit, to take it to the next level because it's deepened. Scorpio is all about depth and intensity. So there's this intensity around values, and possibly intensity around relationship. And maybe some changes. Some of you may be changing your relationships because of a bigger connection to your values and what's important to you. Some of it may be money issues. Some Libras may find that money issues, it's either values or money, or maybe a combination of money and values, are just the final straw. Now, it's not all Libras obviously are going to get divorced, but for a few of you, if the issues have been around values and money, there may be a sudden change in your relationship status. But some of you may be dating someone or with someone or meet someone where you really sync up. You know, you agree on spending and how you're going to manage money, and you agree on your values, and it just feels really like you're ready to take it to the next level in a positive direction. But there's a lot of thinking around this. If you're in a divorce situation already, and you know, so you've been dealing with the court system somehow, there could be some final decisions that come down. Maybe in October, but it could be, you know, throughout this whole year. There may be some changes in legal decisions, I guess is what I want to say. If a lot of Libras are in the legal profession, so if you are in the legal profession, this may be about changing something about where you work, again, your title, partnership issues, attorneys, not so much paralegals, because this is anybody, any kind of entry point into the legal system. So it could be paralegals, you know, clerks. It could be anybody, even, you know, like secretaries, anybody who touches a legal profession from any place, from any kind of occupation. But attorneys often have actual partners, like they have partnerships, and that's how they organize their business. And so this could be about changing partnerships somehow, something new with that. It's also about publishing. When we have Jupiter, it's also about publishing. So if you are writing a book or have written a book, or you're in the field of publishing, or you're, you know, public speaking, blogging, you know, any kind of public communication, getting the word out, getting a message out. There's a new era setting up, you know, with Scorpio. So the era has only a year in length, but because it's in this area of your profession, it's a little more long-lasting, because it only comes around every 12 years. And so some kind of new era is starting in publishing for a Libra. You know, so something's ending, something's beginning, is what it feels like. And there is this idea of speaking publicly, writing publicly. There is something to do with that. When I'm quiet, I'm just thinking about what the pattern is, if there's more I can add here. Overall, there's just a very, I would say, whatever the change is, it feels good in terms of business and money. It feels like it's a positive change. And there's sort of a healing, nurturing feeling around it. So maybe if you're starting your own company, or you're doing something that's healing and nurturing for yourself or others, that may be a marker of what you're doing. But it has a good feeling. Whatever you're doing in your business area feels good to me. I think with partners and others in your life, there may be people who don't like what you're doing, or, I don't know, disagree with you somehow. There is a little bit of an opposition there. It's fleeting, though. Uranus will be where it is for a while, but the Sun and Mercury will keep moving. So it's sort of mid-month when there's this change in profession somehow. It may be related to the change in profession, or it may just be separate. You know, there you are at work doing your thing, you get a raise, you get a bonus, but when you go home, there's something going on with your spouse or something. Because you have had Pluto in your home zone, and now Saturn is down here. Saturn and Pluto are kind of congregated around the base point of your chart. So there are some larger changes going on. So there may be, again, it's a fleeting, it's not like a permanent disagreement, but there's maybe some fleeting discussion that's, you're at odds around maybe what to do with the house or the home or the family. There may be some difference there. If you're starting your own business, there may be some difference of opinion about that business you're starting together. You know, maybe you have a home office, and I don't know. It really can take so many different variations, but that's sort of the nature of what's going on. Mostly, I want to end on at the end of the day, the changes you're making, and some of the changes you're making may be in your health. There may be some changes you're making to your health too. Maybe you quit a job because of your health. Some of you may be quitting a job because of your health and doing something that feels more nurturing to you, that nurtures your health better. So that may be, you may be changing something about what you're doing because of your health. But it's a good thing. Here it looks very positive. And there may be people who don't agree with you around that. But you may be making changes due to your health. All right. So good luck with all of that. I encourage you, if your health is compromised, it's always better to support your health and your well-being, whether it's your mental well-being or physical well-being. I do encourage you to, even if somebody's opposing that, I would encourage you to take care of your health. All right, take care. Hi Scorpio, welcome. This is Lee from Fresh Astrology. We are looking at October 2017. If you want a reading with me, you can go to www.freshastrology.com, and you can purchase a 30-minute or 60-minute reading, which I will do. I will record it and send to you. And if you want a life coaching session, you can purchase that there as well. That's me working with you on the phone directly or over Skype, depending on where you live. Also, I have an event coming up in November through a different business that I've been getting off the ground with friends. It's a travel and event business with a self-help twist. And our event is November 11th in Cary, North Carolina, and we would love to have you there. Okay, so looking at October, we have the shift of Jupiter moving from Libra into your sign, Scorpio. So Jupiter for you has been back in this 12th house area, protecting you in many ways. Sometimes the protection has come in the form of a lot of tending to your health and self-care. maybe even to the point of going in to do inpatient, surgery, or staying at the hospital, or going to lots of retreats. But a lot of self-care has been good for you. So hopefully you've been doing that, taking care of yourself, getting the support and nurturing you need, whatever's been going on. But often when Jupiter goes through this 12th house area, people find themselves a little more hunkered down, a little less out there and social, maybe still social, but less so. Maybe wanting to stay a little bit more to themselves for various reasons. People could find that it is health related. They're just tired. They need more rest. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. There are just times in life when we need more rest and more kind of turning inward. Actually, I've found that having Jupiter back there feels pretty good. It's a time to connect to our spiritual side. It's a time to connect to ourselves and to be a little more reflective. So I tend to like that transit. So I don't know if everybody does, but I tend to like it. So anyway, that's what you're coming out of, and you're moving into a time when Jupiter moves into your sign, which is very different. It will have a different vibe. So the way this is set up, I think there have been some health issues for Scorpios. And I think if it's not health, it's to do with like a crazy schedule that's probably worn you down. If it doesn't feel like health necessarily, it feels like a really wearing situation on you that has kind of, certainly I would think, looking at this chart, that if you haven't gotten a lot of rest, you probably need rest. It's the way it looks to me. So even though Jupiter is going into your sign, I would say if you haven't gotten enough of the kind of care you need, whatever that means, maybe you just need to get away and be by yourself for a little bit, or maybe you just need to move your body more and get out into nature. There's something you require to make you feel, to have a higher, better sense of well-being. And so if you haven't gotten that yet, there may be a bit of a tipping point here where it's obvious you need to do that. And I would say yield to that, because Jupiter is lucky. It's trying to show you what would benefit you. The word benefit, beneficent, goes with Jupiter. It's always trying to show you what would benefit you in some way. It will expand a situation so that you can, sometimes it's like if your eyesight's poor, you can't see the situation, Jupiter's going to go, look, I'm going to make it really big so you can see it. and then you're like, oh, okay, I see that I need to do X, Y, or Z. So sometimes it will do that. That's how it benefits us. But I do sense that there is some kind of need to care for someone. It may not be you, but to care for someone or yourself in October. And that's not a bad thing. That just comes up sometimes, and it doesn't have to be a big thing either, or a scary thing, but you may find yourself dealing with something like that. Overall, though, Jupiter does tend to bring in a year of opportunity for you. As I've been saying in these forecasts, sometimes opportunity comes in disguise. It will knock on your door and look like disaster or crisis. And I laugh because I've lived long enough that I've seen this. And even with my children who are young, sometimes it seems like a disaster is occurring, and then everything gets righted and on track, and then it's better than before. But sometimes opportunity comes a knockin' like a crisis or chaos. And especially in situations where people haven't been seeing something, haven't been paying attention, or just been resistant to change, especially then, Jupiter is going to kind of blow it up big enough so people are like, aha, we need to change something. If that situation doesn't exist for you, like there's nothing you've been ignoring, it's more likely to bring in stuff that just looks more clearly like opportunity, more clearly like a Jupiter event, like a raise or a new job that's very beneficial to you, or winning a lottery ticket, or the love of your life walks in to your life, and it looks more like the class, what we think of as a happy Jupiter event. It depends on what people have been resisting or not resisting, just what's going on. But I would say in the end it's always beneficial to you. But I'm only saying the cautionary stuff because I see this opposition between your 6th and 12th house, which are classical health situations. Health being, it could be fatigue, somebody needs a procedure, somebody around you in your family needs a little extra help, and you just may be focused on that. And it's creating a little tension because it's something you have to maybe respond to. And that's the only reason I say anything that sounds cautionary. Mostly I would say when Jupiter comes into your sign, it's a time to celebrate. But I do sense, and you've had this Uranus impact in your 6th house for 7 years, and this has been a time to make sure that one takes care of oneself and others, to be on top of the health situation. That will smooth out. This health issue will smooth out, and your schedule will smooth out. The thing that's stressful to you, whatever, a lot of the stress that's created in your life, a lot of that will be smoothed away beginning next May. And you may get a precursor now with the Jupiter shift where you begin to see how things need to change. So you may not be enacting, it may not be an immediate action to change things, but you see what's needed, something like that. I'm thinking what else. I do see you gaining more power, potentially at work, taking on more responsibility, getting more of a manager, teacher role, whatever is appropriate for your profession. But I see your ability to take on more work and to be very mature about whatever it is you're doing. So I can see you in a leadership position. Some of that may be what rocks your world, because when you're handed leadership and you're handed suddenly the thing you wanted, it can rock your world because suddenly you're responsible for all this other stuff that you weren't responsible for before. That may be what's rocking your world and be the thing you're adjusting to. So it's lucky you get the thing you want, you're the leader, or you own your own company, you something new where you're taking on responsibility, and that's just big. And so there may be just an adjustment phase. You may need a little more rest as a result, because you're taking on more. That may be what it is. I see good things happening with children. I know it's been stressful, especially issues with children in school. But I see good things opening up for them. It just, when Pluto's involved, it can feel intense as well. But I do see good things happening. Just thinking if there's something I can add here. If you do want to go into the legal profession or publishing or sales, marketing, it's all very well aspected. So it's a great time to put yourself out there for any of this. Or going back to school, if you wanted to apply for university, or it's a great time in October to apply for a job, apply for admission to a school, to submit a story that you want published. It may be a time when something you've submitted gets accepted and published and it's out there. And it's very lucky for you. It's very well starred. So any kind of creative project that you're putting in the public eye in the middle of October, once Jupiter makes this entry into Scorpio, is beautiful. I think timing something for the 11th or 12th is really nice. in terms of publication or speaking engagements. This is a nice time to do that sort of thing. So keep that on your calendar if that applies to you. All right, Scorpio, overall, I mean, that's excellent. To have Jupiter coming into your sign is really excellent. The only reason, that's my alarm, the only reason I temper it is just I see this cross-section between the two sides of your health, the balance of your health. So I'm just wanting you to make sure you're attending to, life-work balance kind of thing. All right, take care. Hi, Sagittarius. This is Lee from Fresh Astrology. We are looking at your October 2017. If you want a personal reading with me, you can find me at www.freshastrology.com. Go to the store and purchase a 30-minute or 60-minute reading. Contact me via email to give me your birth details and tell me how you would like me to structure the reading. I do it based on what you want. And you would find me, my email address is freshastrology@gmx.com. Also, I have a new business. It's a travel and event business with a coaching self-help twist. And we have an event coming up November 11th, and we would love you to join us. So you can find us at tribetripsandretreats.com. So, looking at October, we have the big news is Jupiter moving from Libra into Scorpio. And for a Sagittarius, that Jupiter movement will take it out of your 11th house and put it into your 12th house. Personally, I found that event to be very pleasant. It does bring with it sometimes a desire to be more by yourself, a little more inward. It creates more of a tug to become more spiritual, to explore that side of life, the spiritual side of life. It also can make one examine oneself more closely and pay attention, to kind of learn about the way you think, about the way you think, and how maybe the connection between the way you think and your feelings. Sometimes it's a time when somebody goes into therapy. It's more likely though kind of a journey, the 70s way of saying it was to find yourself. And this is a classic, go find yourself kind of transit. So it's a time when many other things could be going on in your life. Your career's going in, a good direction. In October, it looks like your relationship could be great. All sorts of things could be going on in your outer world, but your inner life will expand. And it's usually some kind of quest. It's a quest inward and a quest. And if it's outward at all, it's into the outward that goes towards spirit or God or the universe and your connection to whatever that is for you. So that's a very important year. It's good to take the time and kind of go with it. One thing you may find in mid-October is there's a change with a child. You may make decisions around any child you might have, or around having a child. It could, if you don't have a child yet, there could be a decision to have a child or not. But you could be deciding something new in October around a child's future, something kind of bigger in nature. A child might need a little bit of TLC and a little bit of attention and care. So you may, that may come up. It's been brewing. It shouldn't be a huge shock, but there may need to be a sudden decision. It's something you already know about because Uranus has been in this 5th house for a long time. And so I would say sometimes it's based on a number of years of something going on. For a child, you're like, okay, I'm ready to make whatever this is. Like they need to move schools, or they need to study French. It could be something kind of small, but it's just something you need to kind of make this adjustment. It may come up unexpectedly, like maybe there's an opening or an opportunity for this child to participate in something, and you make a quick decision. So it doesn't have to be a bad thing at all. So if you don't have children, I would say it has to do with a project that you've gone in a certain direction with a project that's very kind of a maverick direction. Do you know what that means? Like maverick would be you kind of went for it. You're like, I'm going for it. And you may have changed your mind several times over the past 7 years about what you're going for. You may have flip-flopped a little bit, but that's okay. You were meant to do that. It's in this area, Uranus has been in this area of the 5th house of play. And sometimes it's appropriate, maybe all the time, but certainly it's been a good course for you to kind of play around with the direction that you're going in, and be willing to change. And you may, once again, in October, do a big shift again, like I'm going to go in this direction. Or something becomes clear to you about something about your future and where you're headed and how you're going to get there. There may be some kind of aha moment and a big change of direction, possibly in mid-October. And then this brings in this year of maybe working on something, like working on a book. You know, if you've got Jupiter going through the 12th house, another big possibility is you've got a at least a 6-month, maybe up to a year project of writing something or going into a program that maybe it's online, maybe it's at a distance learning, but there's some kind of project that has a 6-month to a year timeline. So for it makes perfect sense if somebody's got a book they're working on, or a writing project, or a legal project maybe for some. But it could be any kind of project, really. Just something that's kind of cooking behind the scenes. And then in a year, when Jupiter goes into your sign, you're emerging in a new way with some kind of new thing. The new book, the new certification, the new something. And so it's a year of development for you. You're developing something. It's a year of also, you know, in terms of relationship, it could be that Uranus, as Uranus is exiting the 5th house, it's opposing Jupiter. There's some stuff going on with Pluto and Juno in the 2nd house. I would say there could be some relationship stuff brewing. It could be in professionally, and it could be professionally. I'm trying to think what that would be. Definitely in October, there's some new professional stuff going on. There's you're putting yourself out there. You may be working with some people or one person. There's this idea of working with others in October, and a new direction. I'm just trying to piece it together for you. Taking on more responsibility in an area of study, new project, and kind of maybe a sense of your future opening up a little bit in a different kind of way. We've discussed this before with Jupiter in there. But something about your future opening up has to do with whatever is taking Jupiter into the behind-the-scenes area. So it could be an area of study of the mind, mindfulness, meditation, some kind of form of study, or a project or a book you're working on. something cooking behind the scenes is what it feels like. But I'll just again say that there's this implication of health. So, just watch over your children, watch over yourself, make sure you're taking care of yourself. It may be a year of extreme self-care, really devoting some time to that. You've been very busy. There's been a lot going on, and you've been very busy with Jupiter in that 11th house area. It's probably felt, and it's also Jupiter changed a lot about what your future is. And when that happens, even though it's lucky, it's so big that sometimes we need time to adjust to it and to rest. So, having a commitment to take care of yourself over the next year, and possibly there'll be some other people in your world that need a little care, and possibly a child. But that's not like a prediction, that's just like a possibility. It's not a certainty. I would say the biggest certainty is that you will need to take care of yourself, because you're going to be so busy with this career stuff that's brewing. This new project, this career stuff, the behind the scenes stuff. I would say with that, and with Uranus beginning to move into your 6th house, it's just that attention that you need to keep kind of a balance, work-life balance going. All right. Take care. Hi Capricorn, welcome. This is Lee from Fresh Astrology, and we are looking at October 2017 and the big movement of Jupiter from Libra into Scorpio. Before I get going, I want to mention that if you want a personal reading with me, you can find me at www.freshastrology.com. And you can get a 30-minute or 60-minute reading where I record the reading and then send you an audio download for you to keep. Also, if you're interested in life coaching, you can still purchase the life coaching sessions on the Fresh Astrology website in the store, and I'm working on my website, so that'll change eventually. But also, I have a new business that's a travel and event business, and it has kind of a self-help twist. And we have an event in November, on November 11th, and we would love for you to come. So go check out that website, tribetripsandretreats.com. Okay? So looking at October, it's a busy month for everybody. There's a lot going on here. It's more intense than September. September we had a little bit of a reprieve. Not that anything, that it wasn't intense at all in September. There wasn't intense stuff. But, August to me kind of peaked with a lot of intensity, and then there was a little dip so far in September. And then it'll, start to peak again in October. So in your chart, there's a lot, oops, sorry. Hang on a second. Woo. I'm back. Okay. Knocking things around here. So, excuse me while I get this back on track. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. Okay, so, there's a lot going on professionally for you. You have had Jupiter going through the area of your chart to do with your future direction of your career. If it's just like Venus going through that area, or Mercury, I wouldn't say so much as the future of your career, but when Jupiter goes through. And then Mars, it's kind of bracketing in the middle. As Jupiter makes this big transition, we have Mars coming in. So there's like this bracket on your 10th house of career, and there's a big change there for you. And it's lucky because of Jupiter. And Jupiter's going to be opening up in Scorpio, opening up for you a whole new future vision that maybe has themes of Jupiter, maybe not, but it could. And themes of Jupiter would include going back to school, university stuff, teaching, learning, publishing. And publishing could be anything you put out there before the public. It could be public speaking. It could be included in that. Blogging. So it doesn't have to be just publishing a book. It could be anything where you're getting the word out, getting your message out. Networking could be big with Jupiter there in the 11th house. And so in October, especially mid-October, you're going to be putting a lot of your effort, physical effort, in to a lot of career activity. And it's been a bigger career year for you, with things expanding. Maybe your opportunities have expanded. When I'm quiet, I'm just looking. In your mind, I think you're doing some mindfulness, you're something to structure your mind if you're in a good place. If you're in a bad place, there could have been some depression, a tendency toward depression and pessimism. But if you use the Saturn in a more proactive, productive, positive way, you've been working on the organization of your mind, meaning any number of things, from going into therapy to work on some old baggage, stuff you need to let go of. So working with someone to help you, like a therapist or counselor, psychiatrist, maybe taking medication, something to help you regulate and structure your mind so that it works for you. Maybe just mindfulness practice or meditation, doing thought work, which is Byron Katie's a good example of this. She does thought work, but thought work is the practice of noticing your thoughts, what they are, and then questioning them, kind of in it's like a Socratic method of questioning your own thoughts. If you're going according to the Byron Katie method of doing the work on your thoughts, the first question you ask about any thought you have is it true? And you go through a series of questions to really, and you can find out that almost any thought is not true, 100%. So you could have been doing some kind of thought work or training around that. Also, you may have felt a need to structure your time so that you get alone time. And that may be something that calls to you, that you need some structured time away from the crowd and to yourself. That may have been important. If you didn't give it to yourself, sometimes it comes in weird ways, but you need some alone time sometimes. Saturn's going to be moving into your sign, so it's your patron planet, so it's far more comfortable for you than for some people. And that won't be happening in October, but it's beginning, like the shift is beginning to happen. And you're going to be taking on more authority. So all this stuff going on at work, you're definitely taking on more leadership, more authority, more responsibility. The opposition that's going on, there are two that are setting up kind of around this time when Jupiter shifts. The opposition going on is between kind of your home life, your family life, stuff to do with real estate, stuff to do with your kids, and your career direction. So you may feel some tension there between stuff you need to attend to from the past, stuff you need to attend to in the house itself, stuff you need to attend to with family, and all the busyness that's going on up there in your career zone. There's a little bit of tension there. You may be, if you're starting your own business, it may be going out of your home, like you're in a home office and it's transmitting out from your home. The home may be the seat of activity. In that case, it's not so much tension as it is making that work, making that the fact of that work for you. Like maybe you need better electronic equipment, a better internet connection. It may be that the challenge is, how does one shift from working for a corporation in an office somewhere else to working in one's home? That could be part of it. But there's a suggestion here that you are going in a new direction with your children, new direction with your career. There are a lot of new things going on. New direction with ideas of home, where you live. New direction maybe even in romance for a lot of Capricorns. And it'll really there's a lot of, your world's going to shake up, hopefully in a fun way, because Uranus is headed into, Jupiter in the 11th house, by the way, is a really fun place to have Jupiter. It expands your world, your friendships, your future direction, maybe brings a lot of money to you from people in power, people who could give you book contracts or people who could give you jobs. Money comes in. You get supported and funded in any way that is needed. And then Uranus going into the 5th house can be very interesting. Uranus is always a surprise. So for some of you, it would mean that your 10-year-olds are becoming 11-year-olds or becoming 12-year-olds or becoming, in essence, preteens. And you get, often Uranus down in this area indicates a lot of teenager activity and the kinds of ups and downs you can have with a teenager or a house full of teenagers. Sometimes that's what Uranus is, kind of like this chaotic atmosphere of running around to different events for school with the kids, and just the up and down energy of the teenager is Uranus also. So some of you have had that going on, some of you will be having that going on. If your teenagers are kind of on the older side and moving out, maybe it's the moving out I'm seeing here. But there's still going to be some stuff going on with kids that is surprising, like a twist, surprising activities. And that could be good or, surprising. It's hard to say, but there's no reason to be worried about Uranus, because just as soon as you think it's one way, it's going to be another. So that's going to impact your romantic world, the world of children, the world of your creativity and any projects you have going on. And there is the suggestion you have some projects going on. I think using technology to your advantage for all of these things, like if you are dating someone who lives far away from you, use Skype. If you're have a new business, use technology to your advantage to support you. When you use the qualities of Uranus, you support wherever it is. If you need to stay in touch with your children, use technology to your advantage. And especially with children, that's good because they're so tuned into technology. But just anytime you can use technology to your advantage, you're helping yourself in this particular area of kids, creativity, romance, any projects you have going on in your new business, if you have a new business. Just trying to think if there's anything else I want to add here. There's good stuff going on in partnerships, good activity here. So even though there's some opposition going on for everybody in October, the partnership stuff is maybe business related, but it's more like, it looks more like beginnings, new beginnings, more than anything else. New beginnings. And like this, something's opening up, a whole future direction's opening up for you in particular. Seems like there's something else I want to add here before I end. I'm trying to think what it might be. The luck is related to so communication's featured strongly here. So being creative in your communications, there's also this idea of a good business sense, that you have a good business sense around a business that has to do maybe with teaching, learning, using the internet, technology, having a blog, doing your business through the internet. People work with you through the internet somehow, interact with you, interface with you through the internet. That's all featured really well. You're supposed to be looking after your finances this year and paying attention to them. How to build your financial base, how to build your financial portfolio, how to build, to understand your taxes, understand how they work, understand how you invest, understand how the whole big money picture thing works is a part of your task, to keep an eye on that. And I mean, mostly for you guys, I'd say that the opposition in tension is more like a normal work-life balance, but not so much to do with health the way it is with some of the other signs, where I'm more giving them a little bit of a heads up about health issues. It's not that for you so much. The only thing is to monitor any ongoing depression if that applies to you. But mostly I don't see, I see the Capricorn chart differently than some of them. I see mostly everything happening is very positive, but it does feel like there's an intensity and a busyness to your chart. That's what it feels like to me. But it feels like it's all moving in a positive direction, and you have a lot of energy for all the stuff that's going on in that area of your chart to do with your career. So happy October. Hi Aquarius, this is Lee from Fresh Astrology. We are looking at your October 2017. So before we get started, you can find my website at www.freshastrology.com. You can purchase any personal readings with me there in the store, or you could also get life coaching sessions if you're interested in that. The difference is life coaching, we do not look at the astrology. We really focus on what's going on for you, what's getting in your way, where would you like to go, this is basically how can I serve you and help you get, work toward the life you want in a more practical way than astrology affords. Astrology, we can look at time horizons, the themes in your life, sometimes some timing issues we can predict, but it doesn't tell you how. It doesn't give you the roadmap to how to do anything. That's where life coaching comes in, and that's why I like adding in life coaching. So you can purchase those things there. I also have a new business that's a travel and event business with a self-help twist. You can find out more about that at www.tribetripsandretreats.com. Tribe, Tribe, tripsandretreats.com. And we have an event coming up November 11th in Cary, North Carolina, and we would love for you to join us. So thanks. Just wanted to get those announcements out of the way. And we are looking at October, and the big news, of course, is Jupiter moving from Libra into Scorpio, which happens to go right across your midheaven. So obviously there's some big changes in your public world. They could be also career related. Some people it's like marriage, some people it's career. It could be a combination of all that. But big public, a lot of public activity. Your public demeanor, persona changes. So you see this when somebody, especially with Jupiter having come out of the 9th house, often you'll see somebody who's just gotten a master's degree. So this, in addition to impacting their career and having been born out of education, it shows that degree and that new title. It's a public addition, to the end of your name. It might say MA or something, JD or whatever it says. And, it's a big, it literally changes your public title and how you meet the world. So often you see it when somebody's been in school and comes out with letters attached to their name at the end to denote their profession, or that they've done something that's distinguished in their profession, and then it will impact, usually in a positive way, their career. That's the classical, if you're of a certain age, or many people go back to school later in life, that's sort of a classical way to look at it. But there are many other ways that people change their public persona. You get married and suddenly you're if you're a woman, you might go from Miss to Mrs. I mean, that a lot of people just do Ms. now anyway, or keep their name, but still people might know that you've gotten married. For some people, it's also people becoming unattached, becomes public knowledge. So this is this very public area of your chart where people make public changes. And you may find yourself changing your career direction, having learned something or in the process of learning something new, that you are moving maybe slowly. It may not be immediate, but you may be moving in a new career direction, expanding something about this area. You may, for some people, you may be in your same profession, but expanding your role, becoming more of a leader. Something about your work life is expanding. But usually also when, Jupiter's made this transit out of the 9th house here, there is this idea that there's some new skill set, something new you're bringing to the table. So it could either be something you've added to what you currently do, a new certification, a new degree, or it could be another new thing that's kind of a lucky new direction career-wise. Maybe it's like a side hustle kind of thing that you bring on to, maybe in the future it becomes a career, but for now it's like this thing you do on the side. So, it's the people who, by day they're some office kind of job, and their side hustle could be more like, they're becoming a really accomplished painter, sculptor, musician, writer, and there's this other thing that's really growing in a lucky direction for them. Some new thing that's come in that maybe they've had to learn and perfect or get recognition for. Possibly. Or they're just now getting recognition for something. Or it's dawning on someone that they could do this. It's a whole variety of things, but it is lucky to have Jupiter right at the top of your chart is quite nice. It doesn't mean everything in your life is perfect. I do see the North Node's in the area of relationships, which means there's some work you're doing on this area. You may be working on how you relate to others in some way, working on adjusting to changes that have occurred in partnerships, working on a marriage, working on a relationship, or just your own skills and how you deal with others. So it just depends on the person and your age. The tension in the chart runs between this 9th and 10th house area, cuts right down the center of the chart to the 3rd house, and it kind of implicates the 4th house too. So the areas of life where this is going, we've talked about this before. You may find increasingly that you want to move or change something about where you live. That may be pressing in on you a little more firmly. This idea of I want to move, or I don't want to live in the same place, or I need 2 homes. Sometimes people are just realizing they need to be in 2 places at once. Something for children, if you have children, something could be going on with a child that's changing. Maybe they're moving from home or moving back in because Uranus is headed firmly for the 4th house, or somebody could be moving in with you. You might be taking on a roommate or taking in a child. So people could be coming in, or you could be going to live with others. There are just changes in this home area based maybe on work, maybe on it's some kind of external circumstance is causing you to think about living differently. And it's just going to be adaptive to whatever your life and what the changes going on for you. The 3rd house where Uranus is has to do with the mind, Mercury. And Mercury is actually interacting with Uranus in your 3rd house of the mind. There's a lot about the mind, the mental state, and learning about the mind, learning, writing, communication. But sometimes it's internal. It's how we communicate with ourselves. And the best way to use a transit like this is to begin to be willing to change the way you think. It's kind of what's required here, being willing to change the way you think. Uranus has been shaking you pretty hard to get you to change the way you think. And hopefully you know what I mean by that, and you know, yes, I've had to change the way I think, and I'm in the process of doing that. I'm hoping that a lot of you are out there nodding and understanding that. If you're not, I would say October brings it home. I laugh with. I laugh with you, but I would say October brings in the, like, okay, I need to change the way I think about something, at least something, the way I think about learning, education, kids, travel, but there's some big shift that has needed to happen in the way you think, the way you view the world, and it's all for your benefit. But it doesn't always feel, if we've resisted change and resisted this trend to change the way we think, then it feels increasingly difficult to deal with this high-strung energy that's coming in mid-October. So I'm hoping a lot of you have been slowly, sometimes in big chunks of time, like quickly working on the way you think, then some rest, and then quickly working on the way you think. But at some point over the past 7 years, you've really transitioned the way you think about not only the way your mind thinks, but about the world and kind of your opinions, judgments, that some of that's shifted to broaden your mind. Because if you've been working on it, I think there's some kind of payoff here with Jupiter at the top of your chart. It's like you get an A in life or something. That life will move forward for you in a better way if you've been trying to make these adjustments. Aquarius, again, not famous for their ability to be fluid and move with change and things that kind of run counter to the way they think things should be. And life has been requiring you to make some adjustments. So anyway, all in all, a very lucky career year, and it may bring into question changes you need to make at home, possibly with family, possibly where to live. And some of you may be deciding to work from home using technology. That's always there too. But beyond that, I'm noticing with Capricorn and with you, it looks a lot more positive to me. I think because of the position of Jupiter in your chart, it's looking like just a big career time of growth in your career, and your self-image could improve as a result. All right, take care. Hi Pisces, this is Leah at Fresh Astrology. Welcome. Before I get started on your October 2017 forecast, I would like to remind you that you can get a reading with me at www.freshastrology.com. You go to the store there and get a 30-minute or 60-minute reading, or if you choose a life coaching session. The difference is life coaching has nothing to do with astrology. That is more of a practical approach, like the how do I change my life? The chart can tell me what's going on, but how can I do more? You might have questions like that yourself. That's life coaching. And then I also have a new business called Tribe Trips and Retreats. It's a travel and event business with a self-help twist. And we have an event coming up in November on the 11th, and we would love for you to come. So you can find us at the website tribetripsandretreats.com and take a look at the event there. All right, so on to your chart. Let's look at October. So the big news is Jupiter moving from Libra into Scorpio. And for a lot of Pisces, this will show that at some point during this year, if it hasn't started already, that you will be getting educated, learning some kind of new higher skill set. So it could be, you've begun, gone into a university setting. It could be online. It could be actually going there in person. It doesn't matter. But there is this time of learning for you. And Jupiter moving into the 9th house of higher education kind of kicks it off, and it's a lucky start. And then what's going to further that trend will be Uranus moving, hasn't quite done it yet, but it's pressing in on the 3rd house of learning a new craft. I would say at the end of 7 years, you're really going to be in a very new maybe even a new house, a new place to live, but a new profession officially. You know, you may be taking some time to learn and, you know, get this under your belt, but you'll really be coming into your own. It's kind of this, this year's very lucky, next year's very lucky. It's all very lucky, but you're kicking off a new era in your career. And there is this idea of a learning curve and some formal training that needs to take place. So it can happen in a university setting, it can happen online. Sometimes it happens on the job, it can be more like an apprenticeship. But I do see a big new lucky era in your career. The whole idea is that you're taking on more responsibility, you're ready to manage yourself in a more structured way, more mature way. Depends on your age, you know, the maturity thing. If you're younger, it's more like taking on some maturity around work and being willing to learn. If you're older, it's maybe taking on more responsibility. Even if you're younger, more responsibility, being responsible for yourself. Maybe managing others, depending again on age and circumstance. But a lucky time to travel, expand, broaden your horizons, expand the mind. So great new starts. It will definitely change your career. Some of you may find that there's this beginning of a trend to maybe even change where you work or your title or something. There could be this idea of it may become obvious to you in October, around this time that Jupiter moves officially into Scorpio. Something about your path and where you work might become a little more apparent to you. You know, you see something more clearly around the implication of this new thing you're doing. When I'm quiet, I'm just looking. There's something about, there's a little bit of a tension between your what you do every day to earn money and this new area of learning and taking on some kind of new craft, skill, higher education, whatever it is. So if you're working your way through school and you're working at the same time, it could be that there's just some tension in your scheduling, I guess. So it just looks like, hang on, let me just look at this for a second. Trying to think what else this might mean, the tension between the 8th second. Maybe there's some discussion around money, or just some private discussions with managers or people who are more in charge than you are. There may be discussions around a raise or money. You may be asking for a raise, or maybe people are behind the scenes trying to arrange that for you. So something about like that could be occurring. You may be asking for a loan if it's education, discussions around that kind of money, discussions around taxes. That's a big issue for you. So there is some kind of money talks, I would say, going on. And that may change some of how you think about what you do. If the money's not lining up with your expectation, if the money just isn't there, then that may change something, your idea around where you are and the direction you're going. And you may decide to change something, maybe about where you work, based on a money situation. It may not be that you make the change in October, but it's putting a little bit of a light bulb over your head about what you would like to do in the future. It may come up over 2018 that you more strongly consider taking action on that if the money situation isn't going the way you want it to go. Now, the other possibility is you ask for a raise and get it. So that could just as that's equally true. But I do think it's probably a good time to ask for that. If you're looking for money and you need to have that conversation, October is probably a good time to do that. Now, you know, how people take it, what happens, I can't say, but it is a good time to have that discussion. The energy's there to talk. There is this idea with Libra in the 8th house of balance and all this energy going in there. How can we balance this out? Because, you know, you might be saying something like, I do all this work, I bring all this to the table, I haven't had a raise in 5 years, and I feel like I'm worth more. It's a time when you could have a conversation like that and at least be heard in a way that's, you know, open for fairness and making something equitable or right, making it right. It doesn't guarantee that you'll get the raise, but you'll be met with the right kind of energy could be there. You know, sometimes it's just people are in the position of they can't give you more money, or they've made a vow not to give more money to people, but that may be something that's going on for some of you. If you're a student, you may just be looking for loans, more money that way. For some people, it could be more of a real estate idea where you want to sell, buy property. That could be going on. There's still a little bit of fear for a lot of Pisces around the future and what's happening in the future. I would say, you know, a lot of the actions you've been taking probably help with that. Some of the decisions you've been making help with that fear. But some of you still may have some fear around your future. I don't think you need to be fearful. I think a lot of you have been working on that and you're not as much, but there may still be a few of you out there. But I think any actions you're taking to improve, to learn, to open up your world, that's all very positive and will serve you. So I think the actions you're taking, now if you're a Pisces out there and you're not taking any action, I would suggest you think about it. Especially if you do have fear around your future, now's the time to take some action, especially around financial issues. And the timing is right. So this is one of those things where the timing is right. And no matter how an application goes for a loan or for a request for a raise, no matter how it goes, whether you get a yes or a no, it informs you about what to do next. So the timing is still good even if you don't get the answer you want, because then you know that's not a possibility, and then you move on. It opens you up for the next kind of phase of creative thinking, problem solving, thinking, well, if that's not going to work, what's next? And so it's always useful information even if you get a negative response. That's what I would say. So don't expect everything to be a yes, like going for a loan to get a house, or making an offer on a property, or asking for that raise may not be a yes, but it will inform you and help you move forward nonetheless, and maybe probably get closer to what you want in some other way. So all in all, a great time, lots of promise in this new endeavor you're doing, whatever the new endeavor is, lots of promise here, and it's an exciting year of your world opening up. All right, take care.